And we'll give people a minute to get on before we get started.
Is this on LinkedIn Live
It's
too?
on, should be linked on LinkedIn Live, YouTube Live, and it's on Riverside. And then we'll post the recording later to YouTube. We'll clean it up
Wow,
some. And so
we fancy.
it's amazing what you can do with a little bit of software these days. So
Yeah, and publish it across all these channels. Like, yeah, just put this everywhere live.
yeah, I should have put, maybe I should put on like Substack. I think you can stream to Substack now. Um,
Yeah, I think
and
Ryan does his the Substack too.
yeah, yeah, yeah. See, he's super pro at this. He's done a bunch of these. He's probably got a really nice setup. So, all right, got one local. Should be. Let me check my LinkedIn Live here. People always roll in for like the first few minutes. See if I can check this without putting myself in the feedback loop. Yes, we're live. I can see it.
Yeah, I just got it too, my alert on my phone.
Great, great. Well, let's go ahead and get started then. So, here's my thinking. So today's building a career in data, and I think that careers in data have always been a little unusual because there isn't one obvious path through the
Yeah,
profession, right? People come in as analysts, they come in as engineers, developers, architects, data scientists. A lot of people want to come in as data scientists. Sometimes they come from somewhere completely different in the business. And frequently the skills that get you started aren't the skills that move you forward in your career. So I think of people early career, they're focused very heavily on technical skills, technical competency, whether that was learning SQL or learning a particular Cognos back in the day, or Power BI or Tableau, a particular technology or vendor tool, learning to build a data pipeline. But at some point, being technically good in your job isn't sufficient to keep growing. And so you have to understand the business, how to communicate value, how to exercise judgment, things like that. So that's what I want to talk about today. My guest is Aaron Wilkerson of Carhartt. He's spent his career working across data and analytics. He's been writing about this quite a bit. And I think it's something we don't discuss enough, how to deliberately build a career in data. So welcome, Aaron.
yeah. Thanks for having me. Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
So Aaron and I first met on socials. I think we first met on LinkedIn. We've
Yeah.
met at a couple of conferences now. CDOIQ, I think, was the first time we met face to face, and DataTune in Nashville. And I thought you were the perfect person for this because, besides the fact that like you've had this career and you've been doing this writing, I get this. I wanted to personally talk to you because I get questions about careers a lot, especially careers in data, because I host a low key meetup. You host Data in the D, which is very similar.
Yeah.
And so we get a lot of people that come in and ask about jobs, or they ask for career advice. And I don't actually have a career in data. I have a career in software engineering, in as much as I have a career at all. And I will be the first to admit that my career arc has not been a smooth arc. I've quit this more than once. I quit once to start a high-rise window cleaning business. I quit for a period of time to go to graduate school in philosophy, and I keep
Hmm.
getting pulled back in. But
Yeah.
I've done anything but focus on thinking about the trajectory of my career. Um, so let's start with your own path, about how you got into data and to where you are today.
Sure. Uh, so I'm the opposite. I've only been in data. So I've worked in data 19 years. So out of college, 2007. So I've been 7 years a practitioner, so individual contributor, then 12 years in data leadership. So I've been more so on the leadership side than on the individual contributor side. So I started, it was an accident. So I graduated from college with a degree in engineering. I used to work for Accenture. My first project was on a data team. So I got my start in business objects. You talked about technology. So I was a business objects 517 guy. So that's how I got started. The team. I was at Dow Chemical up in Midland, Michigan. Accenture had a very large presence supporting Dow Chemical. We did a lot of technology. So I was on the team really supporting their large business objects. We had business objects. We had Cognos, PowerPlay at the time. This was before IBM bought Cognos. This is before SAP bought business objects. So huge business objects implementation. So I was kind of the business objects guy. I didn't really know the data side of it. I didn't know ETLs or data warehousing. I just knew business objects. So that was the first 3 years of my career, was just being the business objects guy who can stand up the environment. I can configure the environment, set up security and all that. Like, that was my bread and butter. Yeah. And then I ended up leaving consulting because I got married and went to a local hospital. I entered as a business objects guy, but then my boss came up to me and said, "Hey, do you want to learn this thing called ETL?" Never heard of it before. So then I got into ETL development. So that kind of started the development path of building out, ETL pipeline. Back then we're ETL developers. Now everyone's a data engineer. But back in the early 2000s, it was database developers, ETL developers. Like, that was the title at the time.
Yeah, we flattened all the roles into one.
Correct. We used to have data architects and data modelers, but everything now is just a data engineer. But back then you had all these different distinct roles, but now we just created just this data engineering title. But so a couple years of my career, I learned about ETL. My boss at the time told me about data warehousing. I never heard data warehousing, so my boss told me about data warehousing. So I bought a couple books and learned about data warehousing. So I got into data warehousing. So that was layered on top of the traditional BI background. So then I started doing a lot of data warehouse development. And then I got back into the BI side. So then I got into leadership. So that was both the BI and the data warehousing. Because most teams, especially years and years ago, like, you did both, right? You did both. You had a BI developer, a report developer, and you had the back end data warehouse developers. So did that. From a leadership perspective, been doing that kind of the past 12 years, kind of leading teams from a manager perspective, and then the senior manager, now in the director roles. So I would say the past 19 years has been mainly in BI, reporting, analytics, data warehousing. Only thing I haven't done, like, as a true position, is more on the data science side, but I've done kind of everything else, like, not data science. So I've been doing this my whole career. So I'm a rarity. Like, a lot of people came in through different paths, but, like, I started that by happenstance and just kind of rode it until now.
It's interesting because I also see a lot of people that get in, like, and as a data analyst, as a way to get into the business, but it's their entry into the business, but then they want to get somewhere else, not actually stay in data. So the data analyst is like their first job, and then they go some other point. So I'm curious, it sounds like early in your career, when you moved to the hospital, there was like someone who was like reaching to kind of like pull you in. They pulled you into being an ETL developer. Yeah. They talked to you about this data warehousing thing. And so you were building your technical skills, but at some point you transitioned into leadership, and you've written about thinking, about being deliberate about how you want to move up. And so I'm curious, like, what was it that got you? When did you realize that just doing good work wasn't going to be enough, that you had to be deliberate about what you wanted?
Yeah, and I think that'll be one of my pillars too. To your point, is like, you really do have to be deliberate. It's your career. Like, you own your career. It's not your bosses. Like yes, they're going to help you, but you ultimately are in charge of your own career. So I knew that in the early ages, that, like, I'm the one that had to drive what I wanted to do. I think for me, I felt that there was conversations going on that I wanted to be a part of. Like, there was meetings going on, there was strategic strategy discussions going on that I wasn't even involved in. Like, they would bring me in, like, if the reports didn't work or something didn't refresh, they would bring me in. But after that, I would like, all right, thank you. You can leave now so we can talk about the important stuff. So for me, it was I knew I had more to offer. I knew that I had more to give. So that's why I knew that I had to upskill myself. So learning more about the data side of it, understanding the business side of it, understanding how business talks about data and how data is being used to drive business decisions. So that was something that I took upon myself. Like, so my boss didn't really push that on me. They told me to get involved in more ETL development at the time, but I think taking it to the next level with me saying, I want to be part of these more strategic discussions. I have more to offer, so I need to upskill myself. So that was something that I took on as a personal challenge that really drove me into leadership. Was there ever a point where you felt like particularly stuck in that as you went through that arc? Yeah, I would say, I think that there are those big jumps. So going from a individual contributor to a manager role, there's a little bit of getting stuck, and even going from like a manager to a senior manager director role, there are those things getting stuck because the skill sets are different. So that's the other trap that people don't tell you about, is that when you're an individual contributor, if you want to be a manager, it's a different, like, it's kind of it's a different career path. You're leading teams, you're doing performance reviews. Some cases you have a budget. So I think is like flexing that leadership muscle was huge in terms of, how do I take the lead on a project? How do I drive a project to completion? How do I bring everyone along? So I'm not just the only person. I'm actually bringing a team along with me, and kind of being responsible for the result, not only just my part. And then from the management to the senior leadership, that's what I call, like, you need to be more strategic, but no one really tells you what that means. So that's the next level. Like, okay, not only can you lead a team, but can you be strategic and actually like understand why this matters for the business, how to get value out of it, why should someone care? So there are those big jumps where I was stuck for a couple years, but then I had to figure out, okay, how do I get out of this rut?
Yeah. I'm curious, like, how you think about, like, when do technical skills, like, where in the arc do technical skills stop being like the primary differentiator for someone in data?
Um, I think it's I think it stops, like, I think it's important to a certain extent, but I think the data, it has to be layered in with the data and the business side of it, just because the technical skills will tell you like how to do something, but when it comes to actually like delivering work, you need to understand the business side and like the data, the true, like in the data side of it, or else you're building things that no one uses or no one like cares about. So after you like, I can be the best, the most technically proficient Databricks like data engineer, but if I'm creating things that no one's actually going to use because it's actually not relevant to the business or no one understands it, that's when it falls apart pretty quickly. So even it could be the best, like, even Databricks themselves can say this is the best implementation of it. But once you get through some iterations of no one using it, and then being like, that could be in your performance review or someone saying like, hey, you're a very smart person, but what you're building doesn't matter. No one's using it. Because it's kind of like when you go to a store and you see, you see like milk in the refrigerator. Like, if no one's buying that, like, that's a problem. Like, ultimately we
Right.
make things for someone to use it. So I think the technical skills become a limitation if you don't have the rest of it, because we're trying to build things for someone to consume and make decisions off of.
Think about that, like, business value. Yeah, I think on like the software engineering side, as I think about it, there's the technical skill. So we have like a junior, middle, senior engineers, and then at staff engineer, really you have to start exerting influence across the organization. And it's really like where the first place where you start exhibiting like leadership across teams. And that's where, like, you do have to have really strong technical skills, but you have to start bringing something besides the technical skills, like when you want to make that staff bridge, and on the software engineering side especially.
Well, and communication as well, because as a leader, I have to be able to delegate meetings, different conversations to my team. So I need to be able to trust that I can put you in front of stakeholders and have the conversation, talk about next steps, and communicate in a way that they understand it. Because when we talk to our stakeholders about medallion architecture, and now we're talking about context layers, like, they're like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. So like, you can talk all the technology to a stakeholder, but they don't understand, which is a liability for me as a leader, because now I have to go back and have that same discussion to figure, okay, what's the next steps? How they prioritize this? Is this usable? So I think that's like, when you're trying to make that jump from leadership perspective, sorry, when you're trying to make that jump from a career perspective, like, that's one of the differentiators we talk about with as leadership. When we talk about promotions, is, okay, can you put them in front of the stakeholder? Can they drive projects? Do they understand the importance of it? Like, we don't, the technology is important, but when you're trying to jump up to your point, the senior staff and principal levels, you also need those quote unquote soft skills on top of that. And that's
Yeah.
kind of what leaves people out of it.
So when someone comes to you and they say like, "Hey, I think that, like, I want to make the jump into management, or I see like management in my career for whatever reason they want it." How do you coach people into that? Because technical skills are very easy to go
Yeah.
learn Python, go learn SQL, go learn Databricks, expand and learn BigQuery, right? It's a very kind of cut and dry you can go get another certification. And we see a lot of people that like add certification, add certification. Um, Management skills are totally different thing.
Yeah.
How do you coach people into like the skills that they need to develop, then to start making that step, and to start exhibiting those?
I I would say first off, you kind of you identify the projects. So you start with kind of projects and saying here's a project that I would normally lead, but now I'm going to give that to you to lead that project in terms of okay, you have a project schedule, you have a team, you have a stakeholder, you have to give updates and milestones. So all the normal things that I would do, I'm going to task out some of that to give you as responsibility and then give them feedback and say, okay, here's what went right, here's what didn't go right, here's where I think you can use some improvement on. Um, Also getting feedback from the team, like does the team like working with you? Did they like it that you were driving the project? Did you frustrate everybody because you micromanage them? So I think some of those as a leader, what you do is you just kind of direct the work and kind of give that to your person and say, here's your opportunity to showcase your skills, and I'm going to help you along the way to give them a taste. I've also seen it where people go into management and they come right back because they say, I hated it, I didn't like it. So I think you have to give people kind of a taste of this is what that's going to look like. And you kind of see if they have the aptitude and the abilities to demonstrate that, or else it's not a good fit. So I typically try not to just say, just because they want to be a manager, just throw them into that role. I think you have to kind of give them those different projects and show like, yeah, I think they can get to the next level because they've demonstrated it in these projects and it's a natural fit. So I think that's a responsibility of the leader to kind of give them those opportunities to showcase those skills and get that experience.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't understand that or they frequently don't understand early in their careers that the management track is quite different. It's literally a different job,
Yeah.
in the same domain, but your technical skills will run out quick. And it's also the thing that I think I see people like when they start to struggle with that, the thing that they want to do is go back to the thing that they know best. And so I oftentimes see like new managers try to lean into like picking up the work themselves. Or when it struggles, they'll try to take on more work. They're like, well, I could do the data architecture on this rather than leaving it to the other person who's on the team.
And that's a
It's
limiting factor. I mean, I've been in those performance review conference or performance calibration where we talk about managers, and the expectations are not that you are the person like hands on the keyboard doing things. So when we see that happen, that's actually like a not good. And you kind of be that'll be some crucial conversations of hey, we're seeing that you're getting into the coding, which is great that you know how to, but the expectation is that you're driving a team to do that. So it's a, you need to know that like kind of what got you there won't get you to the next level. Like once you get to the next level, the expectations are different. You need to know that what you excelled at before could be to your detriment at the next level, and it's not expected. Like, cause no, there's the whole player coach model of like, oh, I can do the code and I can lead the team, but it's very difficult to do both. Like actually writing code and trying to drive strategy. Like it's a lot of context switching.
yeah, 100%, 100%. Um, how do people, I mean, you talk about like, we talk about data a lot. We talk about data tools, but you have to learn the business. The business
Yeah.
cares about revenue, it cares about costs, customers, inventory, operations. Um, how does someone go about learning like the language of the business?
Yeah.
Short of like an MBA.
Yeah, it's tougher now. I think you and I are old enough where we started working pre-COVID, back when everyone was in the office 5 days a week, and I think that was kind of the best opportunity just to be around, listen to the conversations. I would say now, I always call it a full context sport where you have to reach out to people. You have to be curious. You have to ask questions. So you have to make relationships. So when you have a stakeholder, you ask them, I think you have to ask them direct questions. Hey, okay, I see you requested. Okay, why is this important for you guys? How would you use it? Who else do we need to work with? So I think you have to be available to kind of have that great communication and talking to the people around you. So I think your team can tell you some of that, but I think establishing relationships with the business stakeholders. And I think once you start to deliver projects, there's a trust there where they're open to answering your questions, they're open to having one-on-ones. But I think that's on you as the individual to really reach out and establish those relationships and asking, being very curious and saying, okay, hey, I saw this on a slide deck. Can you explain to me what that means, or can you explain to me why this is a problem or why this broke? So I think that's your leaders should be able to give you some of that, but I think it's on you as an individual to really reach out and establish those relationships and talk to as many people as you can, especially in a remote world. Like you have to do a lot of chats, meetings, and just because like you're only going to be included in certain conversations. So you have to advocate for yourself and just go out there and learn as much as you can, because most companies do not have a full documentation of what all the things that goes on.
Yeah, and a lot of places of like they don't have like dedicated like training paths or even training budgets a lot of times anymore. Those are things that get cut, um, frequently. I think one of the key things you said though was curiosity, right? Like how do people maintain that kind of curiosity? And I find that like people love to talk about what they do, right? If you can exhibit
Yes.
curiosity in their work, right, and a desire to understand like what their problems are, desire to understand their job. I mean, they're typically like more than happy to share that. Um,
100%. I've yet to find someone, if you reach out to them and say, hey, I have a couple questions, say, no, I'm not going to talk to you about that. Like, they will obviously say, like, yeah, of course you have to give them you have to say, okay, here's the things I want to ask you about. But yeah, typically I've not found someone who says, like, if you reach out to them and say, no, leave me alone, I'm not going
yeah,
to talk to you about that. Like, they're willing to talk to you, and they do, because we're all so remote now. I think people sometimes are isolated. Like they only talk to the same people. So someone reaches out to them and say, "Hey, I really want to learn about what you're doing. I find it very interesting, or I think I can help you with that problem." Yes, 100%. They would be open to having that conversation.
yeah. There's a framing aspect, right? If it looks like a demand for justification, like, oh, you want this, like, why do you want this report? Like, I'm not. If it sounds like maybe I
Yeah,
won't give it to you, you have to justify my time. But if you're exhibiting, I think the curiosity to like understand so that you get it right, then I think people are like very open to that. Yeah, that's really interesting.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I think to your point, I think learning the business. I think that's one of those, like, after the technical skills. I said truly understanding the business, because a lot of businesses are so siloed in terms of they have these verticals where everyone knows their own like vertical, right? So if I'm in order management, I know my stuff. If I'm in procurement, I know my area. But very few people can look at it cross functionally across the board from a horizontal and know like how all these interconnect with each other. And I think as data professional, I think we're the best. Like if you're in a kind of centralized data org, you're one of the rare people that actually can sit across and see the entire business like cross functionally, other than like the CEO. Very few people have the ability to kind of see across, or has that ability to see the integration, how everything's connected together. But I think that's also a huge benefit, is people in the business actually knows how things get done and how things get passed around. Because most people kind of have their role that they do, and like that's all that they do.
what do you think the difference is? Just kind of like thinking about like identifying as a manager as you're looking at people in your organization, like how do you distinguish like someone who identifies a problem versus someone you can trust to own the problem, right? And I see these kind of people. There are people that like bring up problems, and then or they'll come up with ideas, and you think, how do you identify the people though? They're like, oh, I think you could actually own that.
Yeah.
Or do you just say when someone comes up with that, say like, oh, or would you like to own that problem? Um,
Yeah. Well, and it's a huge challenge, because even I deal with that too. Like, you don't want to be the ideas person. Like, they'll list off 10 or 15 different ideas, but they don't do any of them. They actually don't get anything done. So you don't want to be. It's good to have ideas, but everyone's going to nod at you. But it's the next level of, can you take that to fruition, like to completion, and say, I'm going to drive this. So even I have to hold myself back without. I can always spit off 10 or 15 different options, but I know that if I say those, then I'm going to be responsible for all that. So I have to kind of be like, okay, here's two things that I'm willing to kind of drive. But I think to your point though, I think that's the leveling up, is not only can you have an idea, is can you take the idea and actually see it to completion. Like, that's a very specific skill set that very few people are very good at, to actually take something, grabbing group of people, and seeing that thing go all the way to production. But yeah, definitely you don't want to be just the person who just spouts off ideas and then goes back to their seat. Because then that's like, yeah, you know, the people may not take you seriously, or they don't want to partner with you because they know that you're just going to throw them options, but not actually get anything done.
yeah. Uh, I'm curious, like as a director, you probably actually get like more work directed your way than you can actually do. I think that's really common for data teams. I know it's common for engineering teams. Like there's
Yeah.
always more work than we have hands, and more requests for potential projects. So, I mean, how do you decide what matters? You know, how do you align to like how do you pick?
Yeah, that goes to the prioritization, which is I would say there's many different there's Moscow, there's all these different frameworks to do prioritization. I mean,
Hmm.
I think usually hopefully there's some type of business strategy that helps with that. And sometimes companies are very upfront about their strategy. So I think that's one way to say, okay, our business priorities are these three things. So unless it's tied to these three things, then it's going to fall to the bottom. Like we're really focused on like these top 3 to 5 priorities. So, but hopefully the executive team has shared with the company, like here's the 5 strategic items. That really helps us to say, okay, unless it's one of these 5 things, then we're not, it's going to get pushed down to the bottom. Um, but without that, then you kind of have to go to the, well, how does it impact like revenue or costs or bottom line, kind of those big numbers like on something on the P&L, right? Okay, how is this going to
Yeah.
impact something on our P&L? Because to your point, you could be inundated requests all day long, but it's up to the leader to kind of prioritize and say, we need like here's what's important, here's are the things that are not as important. But I think that's part of our role is to kind of help the team with that, or else they just kind of go after low hanging fruit. Um, but also, I think part of that is communicating it. Say, here's the list of top 5, and making sure a large amount of people are aware of it, so they can kind of push back and give you feedback as well. So you're not just doing things in a vacuum and then saying we're done, and then people are like, well, I don't really care that no one ever cared about that in the first place. But I think that's on us to help prioritize and then communicate that out to our stakeholders.
What do you think that like ICs misunderstand about how managers make those decisions?
Um,
You know, because it's oftentimes like as
yeah.
a director, like you're maybe 2 to 3 removed from someone like that.
Yeah, I think that there's information that we have that ICs don't have, and I think to the best of our ability, we try to cascade things down
Yeah.
to our ICs as best we can. But there's only so much you can cascade down. There's so much things that are just said and not written down. So I think some of that is that point of there's things that I'm hearing about that you aren't, which is why I'm making that decision.
Yeah.
But it's also up to me to communicate and say this is why I made the decision. This is why we're prioritizing this. So we have to explain that. But because they're in the IC role, there's so many conversations and so many things that they don't see that we have visibility to. So that's kind of the challenge between the roles, that there's so much that they are not told. But it's up to us to try to the best of our abilities to explain that. But on the flip side, from a career perspective, as an IC now, I'm like, well, I want to know what he knows. I want to figure out what he's knows. Like, so that was me early in my career. Is like I would get that. It's like, well, I want to be in the same room. Like I'm just as smart as that guy is, so
Yeah.
I can do the same things.
I remember like I've spent a lot of time in startups, and so I remember like there's a point at which like sometimes you wouldn't understand decisions. And I remember when I had like my first executive role, and I remember my CTO at the time saying, you know, now you're going to see how the sausage gets made, right? And the thing is like sometimes when you understand how the sausage gets made, like you don't want to tell people what's
Yeah.
going in the sausage. And so, you know, like we always strive to be like as transparent as possible. And I always feel like there's like a kind of tension about like what's the amount of, you know, transparency that we can have that
Yes.
also like sometimes won't freak people out at the same time.
Yeah, because there's some things that we're privy to. Like we're privy to some of the like the P&L, some of the operating income stuff, and that those are things that we can't cascade down. So
Right.
there's a little bit of a hey, trust me on this. I know what I'm doing. But also there is some beauty in just not knowing. Like I do miss sometimes like being an individual contributor where it's nice not knowing all these things and not being accountable and responsible for these. I can just show up, do my things, and kind of go home where it's like, hey, I don't need to know about or have to do all these different things. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you're privy to some things, and sometimes people be surprised to know that it's not as strategic as you think it is. Sometimes it's just guesses. Like people are making decisions based off of a guess, a whim, a thought in their mind. It's not as like, well, we took all the data, we pulled it all
Right.
to make a decision. They just kind of said, let's just try this out and see. And that's the decision that was made.
Yeah, as someone who's thought about this a lot, um, what's something that you think that people like think will impress their managers, but actually isn't that important?
Um,
What's the thing that like what's the wrong thing that you see people focus on?
I think it's the assumption that my leader knows, or that they're thinking about something as much as you are. So I think a lot of times you don't tell your leader about something, or you don't. Also, we forget. Like, I can't keep track. I have many direct reports. I can't remember everyone's accomplishments. So I think it's assuming that, oh, my leader knows what I'm doing. My leader knows what I did. It's like, sh- sure, maybe a little bit, but it's on you to actually say, here's what I did last month. Here's what I did last quarter. Here's all the different things. Like, those are very valuable to get that in writing, because we just don't. So it becomes a frustration of, well, they don't support me. They don't recognize me, because a lot of times we just don't know.
Yeah.
So I would say being very clear about what you do, and it's not bragging. It's a, we don't know, we forget, or we lost track of that because we have so many things going on, so much information is coming our way. So I would say, don't assume. Like, be very clear and say, here's what happened, here's what I did, here's my role, and here's why this is important. So I think being much more clear about that
Yeah,
with your
you're
leader.
your own best advocate because we definitely don't see everything.
one Hundred
And
percent.
so, like one of the best career pieces of career advice I got that I wasn't great at, but it was like to keep a log. Keep a log of all your
Yep.
accomplishments. Right, keep a log of like the ways that you contributed, so that when you do go into those one-on-ones and things like that, you can speak to them. And it's not because we're not looking; it's just like as a director or a manager, like you're an information overload like all the time, and so keeping up with all that can be quite a lot.
And
Um,
put it in writing. I mean, send out the email and say, hey, we discussed this, but here's a summary of all the things I did. Because when I'm doing performance review, I know that I can pull up the past 12 months of these updates, and I can put that into the review and saying, here's all the stuff that they did. It really kind of helps. It helps, like we talk about promotion conversations. It helps me advocate for you to my leader and say, here's all the reasons why I think this person should be up for promotion, because I have a record of all those things. So
yeah.
I would say, put it all in writing.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of proactive communication. Like when people tell me things before I have to come ask for them, that's amazing. Proactive communication is awesome. When people exhibit that. So,
Yeah,
um,
I would say, and there's something I would say around that is, after you complete something, after you're in a meeting, come out of it, think about, who do I need to let know, so that you're not on this island. The first question should be, who else should know this? Who else should be informed about this? Or who else I think we might find it interesting? So I think it's always publishing out information. So every single thing that you do or have going on, is good to think about, who else I can let know about this, especially my leader, but also who on the teams. To your point about proactive communication and being collaborative.
yeah. Um, how do you think someone should actually decide whether they want to be a manager? What's the
Oof. Yeah, it's
yeah.
it's
I
interesting
mean,
now because I'm
it's like a default path for advancement. So I think a lot of people think that they should attain it. But you said something a minute ago which made me think about this, which is like some days I miss being an IC, being able to go home and hang it up at 5 and not have to
yeah,
think about what was going to come
yeah,
tomorrow or think about, this conversation, this crucial conversation that I have to have with somebody.
yeah,
It was very nice. Like, you could go home and you could game, you could go work on the barbecue and you weren't thinking about work anymore.
yeah.
That's a thing that I think I gave up. But I'm curious, like how you think about that.
Yeah, it's what's interesting is that more and more people I talk with have no interest in people leadership. The challenging part is that, typically, if you want to make more money, you go down like the management, people leadership part. But very few companies have the parallel. Like, what's the technology, or like the IC equivalent of like a manager's team? Like, some people have like principals,
Yeah,
distinguished
staff, principal,
engineers.
distinguished. Yeah,
Yeah, so I think that's, I would say, if you can find it, like, if you can uh, identify or try to figure out, like, what are those parallel paths to say a distinguished engineer makes as much as like a director, or like, what does that profile look like? So I think more companies are starting to get into that, because I talk to so many people, like, I want to grow my career, but I don't want to be a people leader, or they're very bad. They would be a very terrible people leader, but they're awesome rock star from contributor, or like architects. I am seeing architects as a role I still see out there that hasn't really died yet. So I think going down like the technical lead, the principal, distinguished architect roles, I would say, think about like what it is that you really like to do, and find like, okay, what is the growth pattern along, 'cause, like, an architect is very broad. Like, they understand the technology, they're looking at broad solutions, not individual things. So I think it's trying to think about Like, do you really want to lead people? Do you want to have a budget? Do you want to do performance reviews? Do you want to grow? Do you want to kind of see the success of others, not just yourself, and advocate for them? Or is like, I really want to be in the weeds. I want to know. I want to know the latest technologies. I want to drive software or like decisions around execution and technology decisions. Because as a director, like I'm not into the weeds. Like I don't know all the latest greatest technology. I know the names of it, but like if you ask me about Databricks implementation, I'll be like I'm not that far into the weeds about it. But I know strategy. I know business strategy. I know high level data concepts. It really it depends on what your interests are, what you like to do, what you don't like to do, and like, do you really nerd out on technology, or is like I really want to dig into more of the business side and kind of lead teams? So I think it's kind of understanding where your interests and passions are. If you don't know, like try some things out, like try different projects, try different tasks, talk to your leader about it, just to kind of try out different things. Because the problem is, if you go to be a manager, they're going to backfill your old role. So hopefully you're at a place that'll let you kind of go back down, so that you don't pigeonhole yourself and now you got to leave the company because you put yourself in a manager position. It didn't work out and they don't have a role for you. So you kind of just have to ask those questions of yourself.
One kind of anti-pattern I sometimes see coming from the other direction, from someone who's maybe say a senior manager, is when they first start moving people into management, they oftentimes like identify the smartest people on teams, right?
Oh yeah.
That guy's a great contributor. He's the best data engineer we got. Like, let's make him a lead. But there's two problems with that. One, like as a senior leader, one is that you lose that person's contribution when they move into management,
Yeah.
and you have to backfill that. And the second is that people that have those like really deep technical skills, or are maybe the best developer, aren't always like the best leaders, because it is a totally different set of skills. But I see a lot of people that get moved into management, because someone thought like, because they were the technical, smart person, but they didn't have the management skills to go along with it. And they usually don't last very long. They're usually not happy, and the people under them frequently aren't happy.
Yeah, because now you have your leader telling you what to do. Like, well, I know I used to do that. I know exactly what to do. I'm going to
Yeah.
tell you what to do. It's like, well, that's not your role anymore as a manager. Yeah, and to your point, I've seen that twice or two or three times. I've seen it where someone was a manager, but they got demoted back down because I think they weren't happy, the company wasn't happy, and it just wasn't a good fit. So I think before you make those jumps, I think you really have to kind of take a hard look. And I know that the salary is interesting. Like, oh, I can make more money, I get a bigger bonus, but that salary may come at a price in terms of your happiness or career satisfaction. You kind of figure out, is it worth it or not?
Right.
It's a big question.
Um, let's see. Yeah, I already talked about the like long-term IC. I like to see more of those open, like more principal data engineers. I don't know if we've seen distinguished data engineers at this point. Maybe like data
Yeah.
architects, enterprise data
Yeah.
architects, is probably the peak on that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about like where we're at today. I I want you to like load me up with some ammunition for like when I go to my next low key. We have at NC State we have an analytics program, and so we get students that come over. We get master students that come over.
Yeah.
Um, there's a lot of anxiety today. Um, if you're 22 and trying to get into data today, like what would you be concerned about? What would you be worried about?
So the difference is when I first started almost 20 years ago is that data wasn't like a career path. Like it was like there was no data degrees. It wasn't a career path. So I think now is that you have a lot of people who graduate with these data degrees and they want these quote unquote data jobs. And the challenge is you're competing with people who've been in the field 10, 15 years in the industry, and you have no experience and they have all the experience. So you're going to be at you're going to be at a detriment. So I usually tell people just find a job in the company. Like get any job in the company. If you want to be in the work on the service desk, you can work as like an analyst. Just find a job and kind of make it a data job, because every single job has a nature of data somehow, right? Even if you work at a service desk, you can say, this is the number of tickets I closed per week. This is the high priority tickets we got. Like, because most likely someone's not doing that. So you can kind of create your own role.
Yeah.
So I'll say the focus should just be look across every single job at that company and see how you can just find any job and get into that company, because it's easier to move around and find that job in the company versus trying to get into it from external. So I'll say find a job in the company.
So like once you're in, you can lateral.
Yes, lateral.
Yeah.
Prove yourself, learn the business, find data. As every single role in the company has data. So I'll say it may not be a true data engineering building pipelines, but still like showcase your skills and showcase how you can use data, and they will find a role like, and then figure out, okay, talk to the data manager, because I'm sure eventually they'll have a role for you. So like network, talk to people in your own company, but I think it should just be finding your way to get into the company, just because the competition is very fierce with some of these data jobs. Very difficult. So I'll say that'll be the path I would recommend, like just trying to find any way you can into the company.
I think I forget about that sometimes. I think about like how many people I know that are in senior leadership, but like, 30 years ago, I was on the help desk. Um, you know,
Yeah.
it was the humble beginning. So no one started in a management role.
Yeah, correct. We all start somewhere, and I think it's even like, I think I've seen that with these data science roles. I think 10, 15 years ago, all these universities were cranking out data science degrees, but there weren't all these data science jobs. So I have people in data science asking me, like, well, start off as a data analyst, start off as a business analyst, and then like find ways to establish yourself and like figure out, like, kind of build that data science role. Like, it's very difficult to graduate and do that job right from the start. And I think some people are a little bit delusional about kind of how that works. But I try to say, good luck with that, but it's gonna be very difficult just to find that first data job from scratch.
Yeah, I can see that. I like the good luck with that.
Well, also,
Let me know how that works out for you.
yeah, let me know. You can do some talk. You can create a course on that one. But also, you and I live in the world of like professional networking. So I always say, like, I even said, I post about that. Go to as many go to as many meetups as you can. Like, drive around from city to city, like meeting people, talking to people about who's hiring, meet people in the real world, like talk to people in the field, who's hiring, what they're looking to do. So it's a full contact sport, and just applying to roles is not going to get you there in many cases. Like, you have to go out and meet people, go to conferences, go to the networking happy hours or conferences. Like, the name of the game is talk to as many people, meet as many people as you can.
Yeah. I know that I've said we've had this like in-person conversation, but I always see the big thing I say to students is like, you can't just show up once. Networking is not a
Yes.
one-time event. Like, when you network with people, you meet with them over again. Like,
Yep.
see if someone will go out to coffee with you. Like, find out about ask questions. But like, if you just show up once, like, I don't know enough about you to like make a referral or
Yes.
suggest you for a job or potentially like even think about hiring you myself. So networking is not like a one-off kind of thing that you can do.
It would be a terrible referral. Hey, I met this person one time, but that's
Yeah,
it. That's all I know. Like, you don't want that person referring you. You want a person to say, "Oh, I've met them for the past year. They come to our networking events. They had lots of questions. We went to lunch. They seem very informed." Like, you want a very high quality referral versus I met them. Like, it's funny when people reach out to me on LinkedIn and say, "Can you refer me?" It's like, bro, I don't know you. Like, what do you want me to say?
yeah,
I'm not gonna lie and put my career on the line.
yeah, yeah. I remember when I was in grad school, it used to, these professors would be like, if you want to, they would tell you to write it. Like, oh, I want to go do this thing. Okay, you go write the letter and bring it to me.
Yep, I've had that before too.
Yeah, yeah. Write your own referral. It's interesting. We had like at our last low key meetup that we had here. It was amazing. I'll tell you, like, one of the things as an organizer that is really awesome is when you can connect people that you've networked with like that. And so I had someone who came in and said like, oh, I'm looking to hire a data scientist and a senior software engineer. And it was great to be able to point around the room and say like, here's two data scientists. They've been coming for a long time. I know about their work. We've never actually worked together, but I would go talk to those two people.
Yeah.
And as an organizer, like, that's just, super great feeling.
Yeah, same thing happened to me with Data in the D back in January. My old leader had reached out to me and say, "Hey, we have this data leader role. We're trying to find someone." There's a guy that been coming to our meetups around 4 or 5 months that I knew was looking. So I said, "Oh, like, talk to this guy who's looking," and then he ended up getting that job because I made that connection. But it's like, hey, if he didn't show up to our meetups, I would have known him. I would not have made that connection. But yes, I have the same situation where there are, and I even just posted one on LinkedIn too, where I'm like, if you show up, there are success stories of someone knowing you're looking and then connecting the dots. Because as organizers, people reach out to me all the time and say, "Do you know someone looking? Do you know someone looking?" Like, the organizers know people who are looking for jobs and they can help connect you. But to your point, you have to show it multiple times. It can't just be a one time. Hey, do you know someone? All right, I'll come back in a year.
Yeah, yeah, I have to know you, right? Like, I'm not gonna refer anyone that I don't know, and that requires more than like a one-off meeting.
Yeah.
Um, we're in the, what are the parts, I mean, AI is everything, we haven't talked about it really at all today, but like, what are the
Mm.
parts of like being an analyst or a data engineer that you really think AI is gonna make less valuable going forward?
I think presentation skills. I think AI has allowed a lot of us, myself included, like to level up our presentation, like building decks, building slide decks. I've seen it do a much better job than 2 or 3 years ago with kind of like taking information, trying to make it visually appealing. So I think some people who are like, oh, I create awesome presentations. Like, well, now AI can also do a one-page infographic just as well as better than you. Um, I think leaning into and even like the analytical skills. I think the Anthropic article about the baseline, like if you have a high quality data set, if you have a semantic layer on top of on top of that, talk to Coach Kennedy. So I think even like the high level analysis, I think AI is going to once it figure out like how to like do very basic math and arithmetic, like it'll be able to answer those very basic level questions once we come up with much better data models and semantic layers. But I think it's a business understanding. I think being able to understand like the business, understanding the challenges, the definitions, the concepts, I think that's the part we'll have to lean into much more than just like, oh, like I create great Power BI reports, or I know the Looker technology. Like it's like those are the things that AI is going to slowly take away from us, like this technical knowledge and this technical know-how. But it's really just those. It won't know the business as well as you do, just because
Right.
you're having the conversations and you're in those meetings where it's not there. So I think it's really going to shift around like our specializations and what we lean our hat on in terms of what we're great at.
So leaning more into what we call the, quote, soft skills, about the business, and the, less on the technical skills will get subsumed.
Yeah,
Um,
'cause I think we're gonna be building a lot more things to feed an AI. I think we're gonna be building the semantic layers that's going to feed an AI agent. We're gonna be building custom data sets for a AI agent to read from and present out to the business. So we're gonna be kind of more so building things for AI to do well at. So now the question is, okay, what do we build? What do I need to lean in for myself that I can really specialize in? That's not just like feeding things to an agent to do.
yeah. What's your opinion on like credentialing? Do they matter? Do you put any weight on credentials? Someone's got a Snow Pro. Uh,
I would say not. It depends on the speed of what I'm looking for. So if I'm looking for someone to start pretty quickly into like if we're on Databricks, I want someone to start quickly. As I'm gonna look for experience, but I think most likely experience over credentials because it's at this point with all the YouTube videos, it's very easy and straightforward to get these like certificates and these credentials. But I want to know actually, have you actually done a project? Have you actually implemented a pipeline in Databricks? Have you built a Snowflake pipeline? Have you actually done these things? Show me the proof. So I think the credentialing, I would say the word, like we're acute, but it's not a differentiator of, well, they have this credential and they don't. Like that, I want to see like projects next explain to me how you have experience doing that or using that because it'll fall apart pretty quickly if you join the company and I'm expecting you to know these things and you can't deliver on the project.
uh, do you look for people with portfolios?
Yes, I think portfolio is a huge benefit just to demonstrate that because I want to see project. It can even be like you work with a nonprofit on the side or something. I think having something to show that actually I have the ability to communicate what I've built, I can communicate the value, I can talk through it. I think portfolios are a huge benefit as long as they're real on like actual data sets, not like I took the Iris data set or I took the Titanic data set and did this thing. Like actually showing like I did a project on some real data definitely puts you in a better position than like someone on just a degree and some credentials.
Yeah, right. Or the taxi cab data. Um, I'm curious, like when you're hiring like at Carhartt, are you looking for people that this goes into like the shape of people. Like, are you looking for like people that are really deep, like super deep expertise, or someone that's maybe like more W shape, where they're a little bit more maybe generalist, working in data?
I think it depends on the role. I would say for our like data teams, they do need to be more W shaped because we work across so many different parts of the business, right? So supply chain, sales, direct to consumer, marketing. So it's we kind of look for people who kind of have a breadth of experience who can learn pretty quickly and pick up concepts pretty quickly. We're not sitting in like very few people are purely on just one area where like you're just a supply chain data engineer with like SAP. Like those are hard because we run pretty thin teams, so like you need people that kind of much more who can pick up concepts pretty quickly. So I say it's just more a little bit of a journalist because like it can learn the concepts pretty quickly to implement that versus I know SAP in and out, that's great, but we may need you to work on these other different projects. I'll say we're much more T-shaped or W-shaped kind of broader experiences versus just a very specific subject matter expert. Just because the nature of our work is very broad and cross-functional.
Um, what's one piece of career advice you think that gets repeated that's just wrong?
I know a lot of people are going against follow your passion. I think it's kind of follow what you can make money at and you're relatively good at, and your passion can be a hobby. I think work life balance. I think that's being called to question. I think when you're early in your career and trying to establish yourself, you're going to be working a lot of hours. Like you're going to be working a lot of hours, learning on the side, doing projects. It's very difficult just in a traditional 9 to 5 to really do your work and get the skills you need to get to the next level. When I was early in my career, I was doing a lot of stuff after work. I was going like to the, like say, meetup groups, or I do that now, but going to meetup groups, like listen to podcasts, webinars, going to conferences, training. I would say that's going to be an imbalance to start your career. I'm much more balanced now, but an earlier career, I think, is going to be a lot of an imbalance just because you have to establish yourself and you have to do whatever gets done. You have to do whatever you got to do to get things done. Um, Hard to say that, but I would say it's just more of a truth of like you have to get from here to there. Like something has to change. That's just not a natural linear path, path to
Yeah,
get there.
I think that's right. I mean, I remember when I was in my early 20s, like we would just grind. And we worked on tech all day. We came back home, we did the same thing. I think sometimes now, I'm 50, when you say that to, Gen Z, they're like, well, I don't want your hustle culture. Um, and I don't know that it's hustle culture. It's just like you're building the base. Like now's the time when you're gonna, be able to do that. Um, I think that I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
All right, closing question. I posted some books the other day. I'm curious, like what's on your bookshelf? What are you reading right now, Aaron?
There's a book called I'm a little more into audiobooks, but there's a book called Influence that I'm looking into. It's kind of like the art of persuasion of like how because we talk about prioritization, strategy,
Yeah,
even the stuff that I do with our conference on the side. It's like how do you persuade people or how do you get them to either think differently, agree with you what you're thinking about, or how do you best communicate ideas? So that is something that there's studies around like, okay, what are the different ways in which you can influence someone? So that's something I'm looking into and learning more about. Because like I said, I come from a very technical background. So my bachelor's degree
electrical
is in
engineering. Yeah,
electrical engineering is my background. I worked in data. So when it comes to the people side of it, like I never worked in a sales role or marketing role. So I'm trying to rewire my brain as I grow my career to get much more into like the strategy, sales part. A lot of what we do is sales and leadership. Like you're trying to sell your idea, selling
right.
why you need budget for projects. Like so I'm rewiring my brain to think more into like how do like sales and marketing. Like how do I communicate ideas? How do I tell people we're working on? So I'm trying to balance myself versus my very deep technical background.
It's like when I talk to my like product managers, I've given people books on storytelling. I'm like, as a product person, you have to be able to tell the story, right? Because
100%.
that's selling it to both the developers who have to implement it. You have to be able to communicate that story to other people. it's a way that you like. But I'm going to add influence to my list. I'm going to go check it out. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
hey, thanks for coming on today, Aaron. I appreciate it. It was nice
No,
chatting with you.
no, this is good stuff. Like I've kind of stumbled into the career stuff because I know I've had a lot of stumbles and setbacks, so I've learned the hard way. So I've kind of stumbled into the career discussion just because I've done a lot of personal, introspection and reflection, and I'm happy to share with people just to avoid some of the mistakes I've made or learn things the hard way or take too long to learn things that are not as clear.
Yeah, it was super valuable for me. I hope it's valuable for everyone who's on today.
Yeah, absolutely.